I'm enjoying an atmospheric river today, which California is being pounded with. And despite all of the, because weather people, and you know this from your own, history as a weather person, why is no one mentioning climate change? Not a single report that I've heard or listened to has mentioned climate change. Is
so
it
true.
diktat from the top? Is it the bosses saying, oh, that's political, doesn't play well? Or is it that people are just dumb? I can't work it out, Mark.
Well, let me offer a little bit of a thought on that. Number one, during a major climate, this is a weather event, climate takes into account, a larger view of weather events. When things are washing away, sometimes you're worried about getting the short-term information out to people. So I think there may be, to be fair to them, some of that. When I literally saw, mud and a refrigerator.
I saw the refrigerator.
Pouring down a street. It's not a time. On the one hand, you could say it's a time to kind of apprise people of what's happening in sort of an urgent way. Mm-hmm. But on another level, you could say, hey, let's take a step back and look at these extreme weather events and see what the reason for so many of these extreme weather events might be. The last thing I'll say about it is it's hard to connect a causal relationship between what we're clearly doing to the planet, with greenhouse gas emissions and the warming of the planet, with every specific severe weather event. And so that puts the weather people and meteorologists who are on television, it puts them in a tough position from the standpoint of explaining it. So it's a little complicated, I suppose, but not unlike mass shootings, it may be the time to talk about gun control, when there's a mass shooting. When there's a huge storm, it might be the time to talk about climate change and for a cold slap in the face. So, do
you remember that story from a few weeks ago where it turned out that a weather presenter who had mentioned climate change got a whole load of hate mail and was, really kind of hauled over the coals for this? I said that phrase on purpose, of course. Coal being the operative word.
Coal's very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Not a D. There it is.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, my personal feeling is this. Nobody is going to learn that these weather events are caused by climate change unless we talk about it all the time. So it has to be built into every single report that is done. You don't have to go on about it. You don't have to make it political, but you just have to say at some point in the report, and this is caused due to an increased amount of carbon in the atmosphere, which is caused by this, and the evidence has confirmed this, which it has.
Sure.
And that's what's so frustrating to me, because the concept of collective responsibility is not something that Americans are very used to. It's all about the individual. And actually, when it comes to climate change, we all need to be doing a little bit to make a big difference.
I think that's so well said. That understood, though, I would still say this because I have a little bit of a background in meteorology and the like. I would say that the climate change component here probably fits best into this kind of narrative. You have an El Nino event, okay, which is the warming of the waters in the equatorial Pacific. That creates, generally speaking, and frankly, the statistical models are, the sample size is small. It's only a few decades, which doesn't, in weather terms, give you enough time. But nonetheless, it creates generally more precipitation on the West Coast or extreme results with precipitation on the West Coast. But the climate change part of that is that it supercharges some of those events. I think some of the things that you would have normally, like hurricanes. Hurricanes are energy transfer from one hemisphere to another. As that happens, you have them with a greater ferocity and intensity because the climate itself is changing. And climate change is almost the wrong term for that. It's because the globe is warming, that you have more energy that has to be transferred. So all of these things, weather is really just energy transfer. And as you have the physics of all of that going on with energy transfer, it's supercharged because of how warm the globe is getting.
Right. And the best graph to confirm this is the one that shows carbon emissions off the planet pre and post the Industrial Revolution. And you look at the graph, and it's like nothing, 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 nothing. And then you hit the Industrial Revolution, zhup, and it goes right up, and it just keeps going right up. And there's now evidence to suggest that the fossil fuel companies knew about climate change and the dangers of climate change back in the 30s. They were doing research. 1939 is the earliest one I just saw. And here's one more thing. Okay, then we can move on because I find this very interesting. Who is the only climate change activist that you can name? It's Greta Thunberg,
it's Greta
right?
Thunberg,
the only one.
Yeah.
Greta Thunberg, this last week, has been up in front of a judge in London, right? Because for public order offenses, right? She was arrested and thrown into jail. This poor kid with Asperger's who is just trying to save the planet. Why are you arresting Greta Thunberg? Fortunately, her and 4 others, the case has been thrown out. Judge ruled that they had no case to answer, and they were let go yesterday or on Friday. But I mean, don't arrest her. She's the only one out there who is trying to save the planet.
Yeah, exactly. And such a remarkable soul.
Yeah.
But the institutions don't like to be shaken. The institutions of commercialism, of business, certainly don't like to be shaken, and they control everything.
Yeah.
You see it in animal activism. You know, there's a documentary, I feel like it's called The Animal People. There are even more contemporary examples, but this is within the last maybe 6 years. They began a boycotting of financial institutions. Actually, I think it might have been in Britain, where in Europe, I'm pretty sure, where the stream of money was supporting animal agriculture that was destroying the environment, and actually was about animal cruelty. There was and to be fair, I think the most intense protests were around where animals were being used in laboratory research. Yes. Okay, so that we can all agree on is a kind of cruelty that is really quite unrelenting and awful. So anyway, so there was no violence involved, is my point. All they did was organize a boycott.
Yeah.
They hauled them into court, and they actually prosecuted them as terrorists. Now, imagine this. It's insane, but the problem was they were messing with business. And when you mess with business,
right,
business takes control.
This reminds me of the story that we may talk about with the guy who stole and leaked Donald Trump's tax records, right? Donald Trump evaded tax and is still a free man, and yet the guy who blew the whistle on him has just got 5 years in prison.
So glad you mentioned it.
They keep arresting the wrong people. Greta Thunberg, the whistleblowers. I mean, it's like, unless you're a kind of a white-collar criminal, you're going to probably end up incarcerated.
Well, the 5-year sentence that was given to this guy, Charles Littlejohn, he's 38 years old. He, as Anthony Davis was just saying, he leaked the information on Trump's tax returns, which showed that Trump paid nothing, but also the tax returns on a couple of other super rich people, and it showed, of course, that they pay nothing, effectively nothing. So, and so he got 5 years. But what was additionally galling is that in the victim statement, that Rick Scott, the guy from Florida, who is responsible for the biggest Medicare fraud in history, he never did a day of jail time. He actually goes and testifies at this guy Littlejohn's trial and talks about how awful it is that this information got out and how it violates people's privacy. It's an outrage. This guy is a government official who defrauded Medicare of, as I say, more money than any other organization in history. And he testified at the guy's trial.
The judge compared Littlejohn's actions to those of the January 6th Capitol attack, and he said, "Your actions were also a threat to our democracy. It engenders the same fear that January 6th does," he said. It's like
crazy. This
is a dystopian world that we're living in. It's like The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. In fact, I'm just looking at how the Medicare fraud, I wanted to see how much it was. It's just crazy like that they allow other fraudsters, as you say, in the same way that they let Trump skate, they let other fraudsters testify at this trial. $1.7 billion was the fine, the largest healthcare fraud fine ever levied by the DOJ. He was CEO, Rick Scott was, of the Columbia HCA Hospital. He oversaw the biggest Medicare fraud in U.S. history, and that guy is testifying in the victim statement before sentencing to sort of suggest this, you got to throw the book at this guy because of what he did leaking Donald Trump's tax return. It's insanity.
There was a similar story that came out of the UK. I'm pleased I wasn't living there at the time, during the COVID pandemic. And, the UK economy is like the 6th or 7th largest in the world. It's not even as big as California, which is almost the 4th. They spent billions of dollars on a track and trace system to kind of, track and trace COVID through technology. And it cost billions, right? I mean, the Olympics didn't cost billions, and it didn't work, right? It just never worked. So it never went online. And yet the money just went missing. It was wealthy, conservative government people who gave their friends these government contracts. Billions of pounds was found from the public purse, and it just went missing. It's like no one's saying anything about it.
Sure. Again, they just look the other way. It's business as usual. Hey, when Donald Trump grabbed that wall money, it was not appropriated through Congress, which is the way it should have been done.
Correct.
He just jacked it out of the Pentagon. He then awarded many of those wall construction situations to people who'd never built a wall before. They just had businesses, and Trump dumped all this money out. I remember the figure, $44 million for a short bit of wall that was awarded to some guy in Minnesota who's just one of his top donors.
Yeah.
And no one said jack about it. I mean, I know about it because of some independent journalism around it. But it was, again, as you suggested, just as in the situation with the billions spent on the COVID stuff.
Yeah, I just looked up how much it was. It was £37 billion.
I mean, that's insane.
Right? Which is around $45 billion.
Incredible.
The Olympics, I think, was supposed to cost $3 billion, ended up costing about $8 billion when we had it in London in 2012. So that's, for me, that's how you do the comparison. You could have had the Olympics 4 times over.
Yeah, and there are people getting wealthy. Here's the Debbie for you. This is a super chat. Super chats and super stickers are live right now. Yeah, big shout out to Debbie. Understand who's researching and planning on climate change. It's the military and the skiing industry. They are not blind. Yeah. It's true. The military's done a lot of research on it. Well, so have the fossil fuel industries. They know it, and that's
well. They wanted to get out front, didn't they? The fossil fuel industries. Because,
that's kind of what Anthony was saying when you said it goes back to it goes back 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, it's propaganda, and there's still propaganda now. I mean, anything that you read that is negative about electric vehicles, that is coming from the fossil fuel industry. They don't want people to switch away from gas cars. Of course they don't. And in fact, if you go to the dealerships, they don't make any money on gas cars. So the salespeople they're not making any of the commission on electric vehicles. So they're pushing gas cars. It's relentless. And it's from all sides,
What do you make of this border bill? The fact that there was a bipartisan border bill finally, although it now has become so politicized and filled with the kind of politicization that will prevent it from passing, that it doesn't look like it'll actually go into effect.
That's right. Well, this one started in the Senate and then it's going to end up in the House. It's not going to find passage in the House because the House currently is being controlled by Donald Trump, as we know, with a direct line to the new Speaker of the House. And so keeps denying that Donald Trump has any sway, and in the next breath goes, I've been talking to Donald Trump on the phone this morning, which is kind of crazy. But I recognize that, Mike Johnson's Congress, because it is, whilst he's in the Speaker's chair, Mike Johnson's Congress is not the Congress of your grandfather, to coin a phrase from Joe Biden. It really isn't. And so you've got Trump pulling the strings. He does not want any kind of border deal done because it's going to make Biden look good and him look bad. And he wants to claim that he can fix it after he wins. Well, he's not going to win. That's the first thing. And secondly, this is an exposure that he cares nothing for the border. It's all about him. It's all about winning. If you could fix it now. No, not going to fix it now. don't want to. And so many Republicans have come out and accidentally said this on right-wing television, that of course we're not going to do a deal with the Democrats. Why would we want to throw a bone to Joe Biden when we're in an election year? They've actually said that out loud. So this is all political theater, and it's a waste of everybody's time, you know? A little bit like the test and trace £37 billion program for COVID.
Yeah, I mean, there people are getting rich. Here, it's a power play. I mean, this is a legitimate issue. There are legitimate issues that face America. When you look at somebody like Donald Trump, a candidate who's saying, I don't want those issues addressed. I don't want those issues improved. I mean, these are issues for Americans. I don't want them improved right now because I want to run on them. I'll improve them when I get in.
Right.
There's an
false
absurdity.
Promises.
Yeah, false, exact, and of course, false promises.
Yeah.
I watched that George Stephanopoulos interview with J.D. Vance over the weekend, in which J.D. Vance wants to be Donald Trump's vice president. J.D. Vance is scary. He's a smart guy. I think he went to Harvard, and he speaks very well, and he defends doggedly everything about a right-wing administration. He believed that there should be another slate of electors sent to Washington. He supported that idea, and now he's really for Trump winning and then coring out most of the administrative state, as he calls it, and filling it with loyalists, with Trump loyalists. He says, with our people, is what he said.
Yeah, well, they're already training them. You know, this Project 2025, they've already trained 3,000. They've got another 10,000 lined up to train. Eventually, they're going to have so many people ready in the wings that if they were to win the election in November, then all of these roles in the civil service, they just fill with loyalists immediately. And so suddenly you've got a far-right, Christian nationalist, extremist government raring to go. And it's terrifying. And, you know, no one's hiding those facts. It's, you know, I've made so many videos about it now. And what terrifies me more than anything, there was another poll out yesterday or last night, Biden 20 points behind Trump on the economy. And I was thinking, the economy has never been this good. And, like, what does Biden have to do in order for people to be like, yeah, you know, he's done pretty well? Maybe the U.S. is just going to get what it deserves, Mark. You know, I think I would have said that
this is something I'd like to talk to you more in the weeks ahead, because we're kind of out of time now. But I really want to get your perspective on Americans and how we seem to, you know, buy the BS. I mean, here is a headline. I may have pushed this to you. Trump's tariffs hurt U.S. jobs, but swayed American voters, according to the latest research. Yeah. In other words, his tariffs on Chinese goods hurt the economy and hurt U.S. jobs.
Yes.
But Americans like the aggression, the flex somehow of there's a tariff on Chinese stuff here.
Did you see the boss of TikTok being interviewed the other day by a Republican congressman who, you know, he was saying, are you a member of the Chinese Communist Party? Do you take your orders from China? And he's like, I'm Singaporean. I was born in Singapore. I live in Singapore. I'm a Singaporean. And he said, yes, but did you ever, or have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party? And I was thinking to myself, this is just nuts. I mean, this is pure, because you see someone that looks a bit Asian, so you just, because you're a racist, you just presume that they must be a member of the Chinese Communist Party and batting for Xi Jinping. What, are you out of your tiny mind? He's Singaporean. And I watched it. It came up as a meme on Instagram, you know, and I thought someone had made it up. Someone had faked it. It was so embarrassing. So
that was on a right-wing news network. Is that what you said? I didn't say it.
That was on C-SPAN.
Oh, wow.
Is this the clip? You've got to see it.
Oh my God! Look, can you
live in Singapore?
You've got to see it.
Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever applied for Chinese citizenship?
Senator, I served my nation in Singapore. No, I did not.
Do you have a Singaporean passport?
Yes, and I served my military for two and a half years in Singapore.
Do you have any other passports from any other nations?
No, Senator.
Your wife is an American citizen. Your children are American citizens.
That's correct.
Have you ever applied for American citizenship?
No, not yet.
Okay.
That was his big gotcha
Senator,
question.
A member of the Chinese Communist Party. Have you ever been a member
Oh
of
my
the Chinese
God! There it is.
Communist Party?
Senator, I'm Singaporean. No.
Have you ever been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party?
No, Senator. Again, I'm
Okay.
Singaporean.
Let me ask you some.
That is insanely embarrassing.
Right? So that is me answering your question about Americans, right? Some Americans, not all, invariably Republican Congress people, are just either so xenophobic that they can't see the world through any other lens, or they're just dumb. I don't get it.
I think it's a clean mix of both. But I wish we had more time. I love that we visited. Will you come maybe next week? Are you around for a while, or what's your situation?
Oh, yeah, I'm around. I'm
All
around.
right.
Yeah.
You're not a member of the Communist Party?
Not anymore. No, I handed that in when I got my U.S. green card.
You are our favorite Britisher, and I love that you're with us. How about it? The 5-minute newscast, Get It with Anthony Davis. There it is, 5-minute news. It's on YouTube. Get it. Subscribe. Love you, Anthony Davis. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.